Welcome to Gracious George podcast. My new podcast features the topics of spirituality, divine love, blessings, and how divine providence lead us to where we need to be in life. As a Mauritian, being raised on a small island in the Indian Ocean east of Africa called Mauritius, I grew up in a cultural diversity. I have African, European, and Indian descent, and I speak Mauritian Creole, French, English, Bhojpuri, and Hindi fluently. Initially, on the path to priesthood, my life took a turn. As I followed my heart, I learned the love that was meant for me by walking with Jesus. My experience toward divine love has been an incredible journey, and I've written a book about how my life evolved when I turned to a greater love in life. It is called The Jesuit Who Changed Paths, and it will be available very soon. You can follow along by finding me on my Facebook page at George's forthcoming book. In this podcast, I'm sharing my experience with you, and I welcome your conversation, your interactions on this subject. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome Jennifer Shirley, an actress, as my guest on this podcast. Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for accepting to be my guest today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm happy to have you. Can you tell us how we met and what was your first impression of me?
Sure. We actually first met online on Facebook. I believe you sent me a friend request that I accepted. And then not too long after, we were working on a show together doing background acting, and we ended up being paired together for the scene and got to talking. And I just thought you had this beautiful, very calm, warm energy about you, and like a very kind soul you had.
Thank you for that. Tell us from where you are, the place you come from.
I was born on Vancouver Island and grew up in Victoria, and then a bit of time in North Vancouver, but then most of my time up island, more between Nanaimo and Parksville. It's where I went to school and university, and it's where I still consider home. My parents are still there, and I spend a lot of time over there.
In fact, I was there on Vancouver Island last spring when we could still travel. I went to Nanaimo, I went to Parksville. It's really beautiful there. And I think the pace also is more relaxed. People are less stressed.
Yeah, as soon as I step off the ferry, I feel everything just sort of melt a bit and calm down. Yeah.
Is there a particular place there that you would recommend people to visit?
Well, there's so many little hidden treasures all over the island. I do love the area, like Nanoose Bay, Parksville, Qualicum area. And I also have spent a lot of time in Tofino, so I like to get up there when I can too. It's just almost otherworldly gorgeous.
What are the things that makes you happy, Jennifer?
There's quite a few. I think for me, I'm happy when I'm creating, and so I've always been artistic. Like I grew up very much into drawing and painting and dance. I was in dance all through school growing up. I love music and performing, so acting. Yeah, I'm happy when I'm getting to create and I'm inspired and sharing that somehow.
And what is
And my dog.
and what is your what is your practice for maintaining your happiness?
Um, I I like to get out in nature whenever I can. I try to go for a walk every day. That somehow gets me, around trees or where I can see a nice view of mountains or clouds or in a forest or by water. I like that, and listening to music or reading, um, and spending time with people that I love. That's always good.
In fact, I had the opportunity to have a look at your Facebook page, and I could see that you are bubbling with activities, dance, music, painting, performing arts. I don't think you get bored in your life.
No, I think part of that is I was raised as an only child, so I had a lot of time to create my own fun and entertainment. So I think that's maybe where that comes from.
Tell us about the people, places, events that have had an impact in your life.
I think probably for me, one of the biggest themes in my life has been traveling. I was very fortunate as a kid to travel with my parents, like going down the coast to San Francisco, or we did a trip to Europe. So at a very young age, I was seeing different parts of the world and different ways of people living and different ways of being. And that's something that I've sort of stuck with whenever I can. I've traveled through Europe and Northern Africa by myself for a year when I was in my early 20s. And I traveled through South America and most recently did a trip to India for a month by myself. And I just think it's so important to widen your perspective and see how the rest of the world lives, and there's so many different people and lives and stories to tell. I find it very inspiring.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Where have you been in India?
In India, I went all over. I started in the north, and went, as far east as I could, and then as far west. And then I flew down south to Mumbai and Goa. I definitely could have used more time, although I was quite relieved to leave after traveling solo female for a month there. It could be pretty exhausting at times, but I do want to go back someday.
I understand. I have been in India for 5 years for my studies. I was in Bangalore, I was in Pune, and in fact, in my book, I do talk about my experience there in India. The place is so fascinating.
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
Talking about India, one thing that strikes us is the religion. Everywhere you see so many temples and different religions. You have not only Hinduism, but you have also Buddhism, you have also Christianity and spirituality. You have different ashrams and all these things. What about you? Does religion or spirituality, are they important to you or not important to you?
Yes. I wasn't raised religiously. My parents are not religious at all. They told me I was free to do whatever I wanted. I could pursue it, but I wasn't involved in any religious activities growing up. But I've always been spiritual, whether I realized that that's what I was doing at the time when I was younger or not. It's only sort of more recently that I've really looked into it more. And yeah, and just that belief that there is something bigger out there. Um, that's something that I had always felt before, but growing up, I didn't know what name to put on that. But as I look more into it and research more and get into my own practices, I guess that's what one would call spirituality, and just that belief that everything happens for a reason. And um, you go through life's ups and downs, and it's those times when you're down that you have to trust that there is meaning behind this. And I think that that's comforting.
You have been an actress for 17 years. Can you tell us about the films, the shows you have worked on, and anyone in particular that has had an impact on you?
Sure. So I've done a bit of everything. I've done some commercials to, small roles on network TV shows, Hallmark, movies of the week, and a few feature films. But the one that had the most impact on me would have to be the first one I ever did, because I still wasn't confident enough to be an actor or take that step to put myself out there. So I had submitted to help out on this volunteer film that was being shot in South America, but I submitted as to be crew on it so I could just, get some experience and see what it was all about. But they didn't need crew, and they asked me to audition instead. So I did, and I got the part. And before I knew it, I was in Peru acting with these people from all over the world. There was only 13 of us. It was very sort of guerrilla style filming. But I got to try out all the different aspects. Like I got to help with set deck or hair and makeup. It was very hands-on in that way, but that's where I really knew that acting was what I wanted to focus on. And the people who I did that with, there's a core group of us who have remained friends. I mean, that was 20 years ago now almost. And we are scattered all over the world, but every few years we'll meet up somewhere and, spend a week and maybe make a film while we're at it. So it's been very influential for me.
Jennifer, thank you for being with us today and sharing your story. I wish you success in your career and success in your life. Thank you.
Thank you so much.